I'm going to do this a little differently because I don't want to forget to thank various people who made this possible. Thanks are due to the San Diego Chinese Historical Museum and SDSU Chinese Cultural Center for hosting this. Thanks to Lily Chang, our fearless leader, for coming up with the idea of this session. Thanks to OCA National for the video, which we're going to show in a short while. Thanks to Christine Chen of APIA Vote for bringing my attention to the video. OCA National support is evident by the presence of its associate manager of policy and advocacy, Michael Yin. Thanks also to Brocade Wu, president of OCA San Diego, whose leadership to the formation of OCA San Diego. Thanks also to Shelley Lin, vice president of OCA San Diego, for doing a lot of legwork for this presentation. Okay, now we're I'm sorry, I just saw a pop-up asking me to unmute myself. Was I talking? Did anybody hear me talk?
We could all hear you loud and clear.
We all heard everything.
Okay, that's great. Now, actually, this we jumped to a couple of slides. OCA was formed in 1973 as Organization of American. It was at first focused on the welfare and well-being of Chinese American, but over the years, its work has extended to include advocating for other Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. And it has changed its official name to OCA. Next slide, please. Here is a picture of the founding of the founding members of OCA National. And we're only showing a video made by OCA National for the 35th anniversary of the organization here because we don't want to steal National's thunder. OCA is going to be 50 years old in 2023, and National is busy preparing for the big celebration in DC next year. I hope by then it will be safe for everyone to travel and to have big in-person gathering, and I hope to see many of you there. And in order not to steal the thunder of the 50th anniversary video, so we're showing this 35th anniversary video. This video gives us a very good summary of OCA's history and its program. Muting, would you start the video, please?
In the words of K.L. Wang, rather than thinking of ourselves as guests, some of us who immigrated here came to understand that we should take full advantage of what this country has to offer. The gift of American citizenship, constitutional protections, the right to travel and express our thoughts freely, the freedom to shape our destiny. Alex Mark continued, but by the pages of history before us, we knew that those rights had not been universally enjoyed. We came to feel the need for a national organization, one of depth and strength, to speak up on behalf of all Chinese Americans. And so, in the fall of 1971, K.L. Wang and Alex Mark began to garner support of other visionaries, Chinese Americans who had been stirred by the civil rights movement of the 60s. The vision of forming a national civil rights organization took hold. The message was heard and gained momentum. By June 9, 1973, 112 Chinese Americans from throughout the nation gathered in Washington, D.C. for OCA's first convention. Bylaws and a constitution were hammered out. The Organization of Chinese Americans was born. The new organization early on tackled difficult issues and established itself as a national voice for the rights of Chinese Americans and all Americans. Fueled by a strong network of local chapters in the states, OCA began a successful campaign to address discriminatory acts that targeted Chinese Americans. Pekin, Illinois, the small town that became an early symbol of OCA's commitment to racial equality. The year was 1974. The popular Pekin High School basketball team had captured numerous state championships. The name of the team, the Pekin Chinks. OCA persuaded the governor of Illinois to take on the issue through the state's Human Rights Commission. The Associated Press reported, an organization has protested the use of the nickname. OCA proposed naming the team the Dragons, a respected symbol of divine peace and harmony. The power of persuasion, including the threat of a lawsuit by OCA, worked. The name Peking Dragons was born, and with it, OCA's signature in the Civil Rights Diaries. Over 50 years of civil rights activism has not turned the tide on crimes based on race. A report of the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights concluded that anti-Asian sentiment is a national problem. June 19, 1982. Vincent Chin, a Chinese American, is savagely bludgeoned to death by two unemployed auto workers in Detroit who claimed they were out of work because of Japs like him. His killers never served a sentence. This travesty of justice was a turning point for the community. Muslim chaplain James Yee and immigrant David Wong were in prison for crimes they did not commit and later vindicated. Wen-Ho Lee was placed in solitary confinement, eventually exonerated, and apology extended. The victims are one too many, the possibility of future violence too real. For more than 35 years, OCA has played a leading role in pressing for better collection of data and rigorous prosecution, as well as the elimination of negative stereotypes in the media. The goal has always been to air positive stories, to educate all Americans, and improve the perceptions of Asian Pacific Americans. As the first Asian Pacific American organization headquartered in Washington, D.C., OCA became a voice for the voiceless and a presence for a community often referred to as the invisible minority. For 35 years, OCA has served the community in advancing the social, political, and economic well-being of Asian Pacific Americans in the United States. OCA has been tireless in its efforts to advocate for social justice, equal opportunity, and fair treatment. We have come a long way from our humble beginnings as an organization of and for Chinese Americans to one that is truly inclusive. Through its programming at both the local and national levels, OCA promotes civic participation, provides voter education, and strives to reduce racism, hate crimes, and stereotyping. Leadership development is an integral part of OCA's membership services. One of OCA's signature programs is the internship program that has been in existence for 2 decades, offering our youth unique opportunities to be involved in building communities and grassroots activism. OCA's entrepreneurial program is in place to enhance economic opportunities for the community's workforce. OCA has had years of experience advancing coalitions. Our Business Advisory Council has enabled us to form mutually beneficial partnerships with corporate America. Our partnerships with our colleagues and other organizations, locally and nationally, have proven to be effective models of advocacy. OCA has had a proud history of many accomplishments. We were there with the World War II Chinese American veterans to showcase the documentary We Served with Pride and meet with President Clinton to honor their service. We were there with President George Bush in the Oval Office to witness the official signing of Asian Pacific American Heritage Month in 1990. OCA responded to the failure to recognize the contributions of Asian Americans by leading a successful effort for the issuance of the U.S. postal stamps reflecting Asian American culture. We were there in Pomona, California to unveil the first Lunar New Year stamp in 1993 and subsequent 11 stamps afterwards. And we were there to galvanize the community where negative images of Asian Americans were portrayed in the media. In September of 2006, OCA accomplished what was considered the impossible. OCA became the first Asian Pacific American organization to establish a national permanent presence in the nation's capital. With a capital campaign supported solely by its membership, OCA established the OCA National Center and put in motion the grandest vision of them all, a gathering place for Asian Pacific American organizations, sharing resources and collaborating on issues. As in the words of former Secretary of Transportation Norman Mineta, the OCA National Center on 1322 18th Street will become
the center of gravity for all of the Asian Pacific American youth.
Over the span of 35 years, OCA has worked hard to provide the Asian Pacific American community with a sense of permanence and roots in America. This is a legacy we are committed to leaving to our next generation. This is a legacy we hope will be cherished, one that will never be forgotten, and ensures America's promise becomes a promise for us all.
Oh, that was such a wonderful video. I've seen it many times now, and every time I find it uplifting. I'm just gonna briefly talk about the OCA, the programs provided by OCA National. It has AIA, which is Advocate in Action, that is that provides rapid response to anti-Asian hate, and Michael will probably talk about it a little. APAY Advocate is half-day training for high school youth to cultivate next generation of leaders. APIAU is leadership training for college students. Internship, we have two internships. One is internal. The intern will work in the OCA's National Center. One is external. The external is for the summer only, I think. Michael, correct me if I'm wrong. The external internship replaces interns with various organizations, nonprofit, Congress, corporations, and it's a wonderful experience. And of course, we collaborate with other Asian American organizations, JACL, the biannual JACL OCA Leadership Summit. We also have scholarship program. I think the first one was the UPS Golden Mountain Scholarship that is awarded to an Asian American person, first generation Asian American to enter college. And then we have various professional development program to help college students and also to help women and also help young professionals. Next slide, please. We also have a toolkit in conjunction with celebration of Asian Pacific American Islander Heritage Month, Untold Stories. If you go to OCA's website, you see stories about various prominent Asian Americans. And what we try to do is to equip Asian Americans to sell our story, how we Asian Americans contributed to the American economy, to its culture, to its science and academia. Next slide, please. Of course, we have local programs, OCA, San Diego. Brocade later will probably talk more about it. This is just a recent event that we held in the Convoy area of San Diego to reach out to the community. Next slide, please. And our sister chapter in Sacramento is having a bullying prevention awareness week in October. I encourage everybody to sign up. Next slide, please. OCA also has Image magazine, which is published online only, I think, and it will be emailed to members twice a year. This is the cover of the spring 2021 issue and the contents. And this is the end of my presentation. Thanks for listening. Next will be Michael.
Michael, take it away.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me once again. My name is Michael Nguyen, and I am the Associate Manager of Policy and Advocacy with OCA National. We are based in DC, but I do work remote out of San Francisco. Next slide, please. So I'm here just to talk about the work that we have been doing around anti-Asian hate. You'll see on this slide, we've been pretty busy this past year, especially in the springtime, as we're seeing sort of the numbers begin to increase around the rising anti-Asian violence. So here are some of the things that we've been working on. The first is the Hate Crimes Community Action Guide, which you saw in the video. This is something that was published back in 2005, and we've had 2 or 3 iterations of it since. And we are continuing to update the guide, especially in light of recent statistics and things that have come up this past year during the pandemic. So we are working on updating that, and we'll release that as soon as it's complete. The second is the collaboration with the Asian American Foundation on the Anti-Hate Toolkit, which I will go into a little more later. We also have a hate crimes reporting tool online. We recently updated that as well. And so if you go to our website, I believe the link is also on here. This is along with Stop API Hate, with AAJC and other organizations, we have been collecting hate crimes reporting since the beginning of the pandemic. And we use that and we work with data scientists to sort of analyze the data and to use that data information to see what we can do, in terms of coming up with solutions to this issue. The fourth item on here is the rapid response trainings that we do for our chapters. This is a new training that we did this past spring, and as you already know now, we have around 50 chapters across the country, and when it comes to hate crimes, it's very much a community issue, right? And so we want to equip our chapter leaders with the tools to be able to respond to hate crimes when it's happening in their communities. And so that's something that I'll talk a little bit more about as well. We also have the situational awareness workshop, and then we also have organized town halls around anti-Asian hate. And during these town halls, we have chapter leaders that are doing really great work in their communities across the country, share with our members, what they're doing to address anti-Asian hate in their communities. We bring in sort of guest speakers, experts in various areas. And so it's been, these town halls have been very enlightening and very helpful. We've also organized fireside chats. This is called the Fireside Chat, Mobilizing and Organizing Your Community Towards Lasting Change. And again, this is recognizing that there are chapters across the country that are doing really good work in their communities to address anti-Asian hate. And so during this fireside chat, we had the president of OCA New York, of, I believe it was Seattle, and then I forgot the third OCA chapter, but really sitting down for an intimate conversation and discussion about how these leaders are organizing, whether it's public education workshops, whether it's getting in touch with the media or walking groups to help protect the elders in the communities. They really got together to discuss, like, have an intimate conversation about what they're doing in their communities, and so that went really well. And then, throughout the past year, I've also been, putting on presentations for organizations and companies around understanding anti-Asian racism and how to be an effective ally. And during this presentation, we go into the history of anti-Asian hate and how this is not something new, how we have always been viewed as the perpetual foreigner, and then sort of end the presentation with tips on how folks can be an effective ally when it comes to this. Next slide, please. So in this next slide, I mentioned to you that we organized a rapid response training for our chapters. And this has been a really great training. If you go to the next slide, you'll see that in this rapid response training, there's different ways that we assess at a community level. It's called ARCCS. So assessment, resources, communications, community building, and systemic change. And this recognizes, so when it comes to hate crimes, I'm putting on my prosecutor hat now. I've worked as a prosecutor for about 5 years in the San Francisco Bay Area. And typically when I look at hate crimes, I see it through the lens as a prosecutor, right? Which is when a crime occurs, we're tasked with gathering evidence to make sure that we can prove that the crime occurred, prove it in court, right? And in court, you have to prove, in order to convict somebody of a crime, you have to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt to 12 jurors, right? And so that's just one avenue to addressing hate crimes, right? But I don't think the criminal justice system is the only solution. I think it's just as important, if not more important, to having the community being equipped to respond to hate crimes. And so that's the aim of this rapid response training, right? When a hate crime happens in your community, what can community members do to really assist the victims of crimes, right? And making sure that the perpetrator is held accountable, et cetera, et cetera. So if you go on to the next slide, you'll see that as part of this training, we talk about the difference between hate crimes and hate incidences. And this is really important to understand, right? And as we see this happening in the media, a lot of times folks are confused about why we see a crime happening on video, but we're not understanding why the prosecution is not charging it as a hate crime, but calling it really a hate incident. And so we train our community members to understand that, a hate crime is when a criminal offense occurs against, a person or property, and that crime has to be based on a bias against the person's race, ethnicity, national origin, religion, sexual orientation, gender, or disability. And so some examples include like a battery, right, an assault, or vandalism on a property. And that's different from a hate incident where it's not necessarily punishable under the law. These are any acts, conduct, speech, or expression that are bias motivated, but again, they're not technically punishable under the law. And some examples of hate instances include verbal harassment, ridicule, threats, insults, and slurs. If you go on to the next slide, we also talk about the importance of victim support. And there are a lot of different ways to support victims of crimes, and helping communities understand, because a lot of times community members don't really understand how the criminal justice system works. And basically, when there is a victim of a crime and it is brought to court, that there are victim services available for the victim, right? Whether it's mental health services, whether it's restitution for damages to property. So restitution is just meaning money damages that are that the victim is allowed to apply for, right? For damages, for medical expenses, things like that. And then if you go into the next slide, you'll see that we have some chapter leaders actually go through the ARCCS and sort of apply it to an actual sample case that happens in their community. And in this example, basically, if you go on to the next slide, there's just a photo of the perpetrator in this incident. In this particular incident, this happened in Sacramento, and the chapter president, Greg Jung, shared that on this particular case, the perpetrator basically painted and graffitied over a restaurant, the windows of a restaurant, basically anti-Asian graffiti, right? Saying sort of slurs, anti-Asian slurs. And this act was videoed, was captured on surveillance camera. So that's the assessment. And sort of the resource assessment is, law enforcement was called immediately, right? Which is you should usually do in order to report an incident or report a crime. It's really important to do that. The video evidence was collected and turned over to the local police department. The local community members, got onto Facebook and sort of kind of spread the word on Facebook as well to, spread the word on Facebook. And then in terms of crisis communication, this include, getting in touch with law enforcement, reaching out to social media outlets and notifying them immediately, as well as, the television station, local television stations. In terms of the community building, local residents basically arrived that day to help clean up the paint on the restaurant exterior walls, the windows, as well as the front entrance. And then basically the restaurant was open that same day. And I believe that Greg also talked about, the ways that they support, other ways that they support the victim. And so, when we talk about systemic change, it's really important, to understand that community can really play an important role and can be an ally when a hate crime occurs against the victim. So this is just a sample case study. So that's our rapid response training. We've done quite a few trainings, and we have a few more that we're doing throughout the next few months. But it's a well-received training, and it's training that I really enjoy putting on. If you go on to the next slide, you'll see that another sort of training that we do is a situational awareness workshop. This, another name for it is bystander intervention, right? And in this workshop, this was put together by OCA Greater Houston in response to the increased rise of anti-Asian, hate and xenophobia and harassment against the Asian community. And basically, this training provides, educational and awareness tools to combat different types of oppression. And so this is a 1 hour long free, workshop. And we basically train people how to be confident and effective bystanders against racism and discrimination. During this training, we talk about some really important concepts around, power and privilege and bias. We talk about race. And these are all important concepts to understand in order to really be an effective bystander, right? If you go on to the next slide, as part of this presentation, we do this wheel of power, exercise. And it's a really interesting exercise where you see in this diagram, there's different, ways to identify yourself through your education, your ability, sexuality, gender, language abilities, etc. And we ask members to place a star on where they identify. And so it's a really interesting exercise, and we always have a really interesting dialogue at the end around how people don't really realize, how privileged they are, right, until they do this exercise. It's really understanding your privilege and understanding your power and leveraging that power in situations where there's a victim of a hate incident, right? And using your power and privilege to maybe step in and help that person, right? Please, if you go on to the next slide, as part of this training, we also use this acronym called RESPECT. And basically, the RE stands for receptive, meaning, it's important to be receptive and aware of your surroundings, to prioritize your personal safety, and to follow the victim of the targeted incident or hate crime. SP stands for space, which means to create space in the disruption and distraction, creating some kind of diversion between the perpetrator as well as the victim. E stands for engage, which means to engage other people to help. You can follow up with the victim's cues. You can even record the incident with your phone. And then C stands for confront, which means exactly that, confront the perpetrator. So we go into that a lot more detail. We use a lot of examples during the training. If you went to the next slide, please. We also show videos of real life examples. And in this sample video, this was an incident that occurred in Monterey, California, where a white tech CEO, this is at a winery at a dinner place, he started, just saying really racist comments towards an Asian family that was sitting and just minding their own business, just having dinner there. And this is all caught on video, him just saying, using racial slurs, saying, go back to your home country, things like that. And in this video, the waitress of the restaurant actually stepped in between the man and the family and basically tells the man, like, get out of the restaurant, that he should not be saying this to the family, that they have a, just saying, just really like standing up for the family, right? And using the respect strategies that I just went over. And so we showed this video and we sort of discussed how the respect strategies was used. And then we use, during this training, we have other hypotheticals and situations that we discuss with everyone. And so that's our bystander intervention training workshop. I highly encourage you to attend if you're able to. You can go onto our national website and look for the information there and sign up if you're interested in learning how to become an effective and confident bystander. And lastly, I know I'm nearing my end of my time here. If you go on to the next slide, this is the digital toolkit that OCA worked with the Asian American Foundation, which is a newly formed organization, in partnership with OCA, with AAJC, API Vote, the Sikh Coalition. This is a digital toolkit that was created and designed to really equip, the public, local officials, activists, and advocacy groups with culturally competent education and really up-to-date safety resources for addressing anti-API hate. And so if you go on to the next slide, there's just really, really good resources in here. The link is should be in this slide, but I could also share it with you and drop it in the chat. But I highly encourage you, if you get the chance to, this is a digital toolkit. So if you can take a look at it, it's really, really great resources to share, with others in your community. So these are just some of the things that OCA National has been working on. But again, I thank you for the opportunity to be here and to share with you some of the stuff that we've been doing. Thank you.
Michael, thank you very much. We're thrilled that you were able to be here with us. And we're now going to have the third presenter, which is going to be Brocade Wu. And Brocade, why don't you take it away right now? Brocade?
Yes.
Are you on mute?
Yes. Okay. My name is Brocade Wu, and our organization, OCA, was established in May this year after the shooting at Atlanta Asian Spa. The tragedy is a watershed moment and a wake-up call for us, which shocked us into action. Our organization mission is to empower Asian Pacific American and advocate for our community. Next, please. Next, our goal is to build unity among API communities, encourage more political participation, foster involvement in community affairs, form alliance with other ethnic groups to stand up against racial discrimination and injustice. Next. There's this myth about Asian Americans that we are smart, hardworking, law-abiding, considered model minority, and have individual success and wealth. Next. However, due to culture and experience, we tend to be passive and reserved. We are not involved much in community affairs, and we don't participate enough in political process. The Asian voting rate is just around 50%. and there's are few organizing efforts. And as a result, there's very low community influence and power. Next, please. Starting from next year, last year, due to the pandemic, Asian American has been scapegoated for the origin, due to the origin of virus. And there's rising of anti-Asian hate crimes and incidents. We have to act now. We have to change our mindset, get out of our comfort zone to advocate for our rights and our community before tragedies strike again. Next, please. We have to start to participate more, volunteer, speak up, donate. For those who have accumulated wealth, instead of leave all of them to your children, why not donate portion of it to community causes to build a better future for our next generation? And we have to start organize, and most important, vote. Next, please. Well, it takes a few years to develop myself as the activist I am today. We have to first overcome our mental block, learn to self-coach, and develop better communication skill. I'm still learning, and train for advocacy. Join OCA San Diego. We have all the resources for you to help you succeed. Next, please. With the backing and support from OCA National, OCA San Diego have all the resources, experience, track record, opportunities, tool set, and network to assist you. Next, please. Over the past few months, we have several successful events, and we have more exciting events under planning. We invite community leaders to share their experience with us. Dr. Lily Chen was with us on July 24th to share her experience, and we will have the honor of the presence of Tom Home on October 30th. Tom is the first elected Asian to the San Diego City Council and the second Asian elected to California State Assembly. He is 94 years old this year, and we are just really fortunate to have a personal interaction with him. The event will be a physical one, outdoor event. So if you are interested, please join us. We also like to have conversation with elected officials. Carlsbad Councilwoman Priyobhat Patel has joined us on our launch event in May. And we will have Congressman Mike Levine join us on the 23rd, in a few days, in a Zoom online event to discuss issues which concern us. So please, again, join us on the event. Next year, we plan to also invite State Assemblywoman Tasha Boner-Havels to discuss, have discussion with us as well. We have outreach to Asian community as Wen-Hua shown, either to Asian business, restaurant, and or outside the Asian grocery store to encourage voter registration, to promote the vaccine, COVID vaccine, and also bring awareness about the anti-Asian hate crime, among other things. At the same time, we also have social event to foster bonds and unity. We have launch event in May and several outdoor picnic. And in a few days, on the 21st, we will have celebration of the Moon Festival. it will be an outdoor event, so please join us. As Michael and Wenhua have shown, OCA have many training programs for Asian business and community, have all the resources that you need to succeed. To stop Asian hate and bring community harmony with cultural understanding, we are planning a lantern parade in Carlsbad downtown in memory of the hate crime victims next year on February 16th. If you are interested, please join us as either co-sponsor or attend the event. Next, please. Join us. Together we can overcome, and united we can achieve more and have fun while doing good. Please visit us on our Facebook page, OCA San Diego, at OCA San Diego chapter. And if you have more questions or need more information, please email us at ocasdchapter@gmail.com. As we know, the Asians has been underrepresented in politics and in leadership position across all industry. Next, please. So a few days ago, I started a petition to Governor Newsom to urge him to appoint Asian American to fill senator, for instance, see if it become available. Please add your name by clicking the link, which will lead you to change.org. Together, we can make a difference, show our Asian power. Next, please. Next, we will have several board members of OCA San Diego to share why they decide to join OCA San Diego. The first one will be Jean Shu, who is the secretary, and Peggy Lee, who is the lead of the outreach committee, as well as Kitty Wee, who is the assistant secretary. And I'm very honored to have a very strong team to help me.
Jean, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I thank you very much, Brocade. I joined because I want to serve and support the Chinese American and AAPI community. Especially a lot happened last year. So in the face of discrimination and violence against those very vulnerable members of our community. So today, I really want to thank everybody for making that possible. Okay, thanks.
And Peggy, who is the lead of our outreach community.
You're muted,
Please
Peggy.
mute yourself, Peggy. Unmute yourself first.
It's one of our 2 phrases of 2021.
Well, thank you all. This has been just so informative. I'd like to thank, I am so honored to be part of the OCA San Diego, and thanks to Brocade for giving me this great opportunity to speak out and to participate in fighting against anti-hate crimes, as well as my interest as well is to open a path for a more peaceful world and more educational and career opportunities to the next generation, our descendants, our children, our children's children, and so forth. And with the help of the guidance of OCA, our fellow chapters, the National OCA chapter, and the AAPI community, our voice will hopefully get louder and louder, and the world will recognize for who we are and what we have done, what we can do, and respect us as their equals. and we shall not be defeated. My role is to support whatever activities and events we have planned. Thank you.
Thank you, Peggy. Well, unfortunately, Kitty is not available, seems not available today. Her daughter has a surgery. So, but I appreciate that the other member were able to speak up for the organization.
That's that's perfectly okay. We're sorry we don't have her. But right now, what we're going to do is we're going to have I'm going to introduce our discussant, who's Ron Cho. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to ask Ron a few questions, and then Ron can offer his thoughts about today's very interesting program, very stimulating. And then we're going to also answer all of the chats that Elizabeth is going to be enumerating, and she's in charge of that. I'll tell you a funny thing. Elizabeth just wrote a little private chat to me, and she said, mention the, don't forget to mention the September 18th, 1931, 90th anniversary of Japan invading China and bombing China and so forth. And, you know, and I was thinking, I just mentioned it, but I was thinking there's so many hate crimes that are against minorities, and it's just one. And what about the 1882 Federal Chinese Exclusion Act, the only law ever directed specifically against a racial group? I mean, it's shocking, which was in force until the 1940s. So in any event, I'm going to introduce Ron Cho. And we're fortunate to have him. He's the president of the San Diego chapter of the Asian Pacific Islander American Public Affairs Association, or APAPA, and supporting its mission to empower Asian and Pacific Islanders Americans in civic and public affairs through education, active participation, and leadership. He's got a background in software design and project management, worked with a variety of companies in engineer and management roles, and we're happy to have him. So Ron, I'm going to ask you just a few questions. You can talk on these. First is perception. And what I did was preparation for this. I downloaded the California Executive Summary of Hate Crimes in California. And it absolutely confirms everything we're chatting about. It shows a significant rise in Asian American hate crimes, so forth and so on, just as we are all chatting about. It also puts things in different categories: gender crimes, religion crimes, racial crimes. And I find that the largest category, far outnumbering the Asian, is African Americans, and then after that, other categories, and even anti-Jewish crimes are greater than the Asian. Yet the Asian crimes are significant, and they have risen quite a bit. And my question is that even though the numbers are not enormous, it has this chilling effect on a community. And here we are, and people are concerned about walking out of doors, about having their kids go to school, and the effect of these anti-bias crimes can be far greater than the actual crime itself on the community. Could you talk about this, Ron?
Well, you mentioned Bob, and the perception and the history. Before I do that, first, thank you to the San Diego Chinese Historical Museum, the Chinese Cultural Center, and OCA for inviting me to participate in this conversation and the continued conversation. And the subject matter of today's conversation of we will not stay silent anymore is relevant to your question and to your comments and observation about what's been going on these past 18 months, and actually historically, as you mentioned. And it was unfortunately normalized by our recent leadership, and it's incredibly disappointing. It's incredibly saddened to have this subject matter continue to be the forefront, but it needs to be. It needs to be, and the perception and the fear of it is the fact that it is the model minority myth that is in play here. And we need to work together, OCA, APAPA, everyone else in the Asian American community and other communities to really work and join forces in the sense of breaking down this barrier. No, ethnicity is one thing. Yes, I'm Chinese, and there's Japanese, there's Koreans, there's Blacks, there's Jewish. But if we don't work together to solve this, and yes, we are all one voices, and we're here as Asian Americans. But if we don't work together across ethnicity, across culture, this will always happen. And the last comment on the whole thing about why Asian Americans, why the elderly, is that, again, it's that perception of the reluctancy to report crimes, the fear of retributions, the fear of speaking out. We need to work again collectively to encourage more participation, like we're doing now. We need to encourage collaboration, as we're doing now. And those are the primary aspect of that whole breaking down the perception.
May I speak a little bit about that? Well, I feel the reason why anti-Asian incidents has been fewer in the past. It may not because it happened less, but just as Ron mentioned, it's reported less. I feel that Asians are more passive and they tend to put up with more and not speaking up, just keep silent, even if they experience any mistreatment. So it is definitely underreported, but Asian has been discriminated and mistreated, historically. So we just now have to learn to speak up for ourselves.
I think that's that's across all hate crimes, gender-based, religion-based, racially based. I think they've all been unreported. So the numbers that are published are probably a lot less than reality. Ron, you brought up a point. Boonhwa, a few of your, I'll call you on you right after I bring up this point to Ron. You brought up the issue of the last president, and you mentioned his going out of his way to refer to COVID as Asian flu. He just would exult in this, and this brings up the point of political activism, and I wonder whether anyone from either the Organization of Chinese Americans or Ron from APAPA could comment on this issue of the importance of political activism. Ron, could you start?
Sure. The political activism is the participation in the from a civic engagement perspective in using your voice and using our voice and being out in the community. I've been doing this with the encouragement of Dr. Lily Chang for the past 12, 15 years, and I consider her my mentor and a dear friend. Without her encouraging me to participate in this, I would not be involved in the community. I happen to serve on the city of San Diego's Parks and Recreation Board. I am on the mayor's Gloria's API advisory board, and have been helping with redistricting for an API empowerment district in San Diego. And that takes time, and that takes a little bit of effort, and it takes a little bit of breaking down fear of being involved in the community, and that whole political participation and activism is part of how we make changes, and that's how we can strive to again be at the table, and that's what I encourage everyone on this call today to take action, not by just participating in these events, but actually stepping in the community, making your voices heard. And once you do that, and you create some validation for yourself, and you're not out there for yourself as a personal agenda, I was just encouraged to participate. That whole participation created additional opportunities.
Yes, I would like to say a couple words.
Oh, please.
Just as Bouquet and Ron had said, yes, Asian Americans are the least likely group to report hate crimes. But with all the new tools and trainings and toolkits Michael just talked about today, I believe it will enable us and empower us to speak up and stand up for our rights. And it would also feel safer to know there is an entire community behind us. Also,
Thank you. Woonwha, you've been very patient. Woonwha, feel free to speak now. Thank you, Shelley.
Nice to see you, Shelley. Anyway, I just want to echo what Bouquet, Ron, and Shelley said, that we cannot stay silent. When I was active in the Asian American community in Chicago, politicians in Chicago were known to love Chinese American donors. They just donate a lot of money and have a picture taken to be published in a Chinese newspaper, and that's it. They never ask for anything. They just love. And I think this is the most stupid way to participate. So, you know, Shelley was active with me in Chicago. Then we urged Chinese and other Asian Americans to be savvy in their donations, in their participation in community activity. Don't just have a picture taken, it's useless. Who knows you? Yeah. And the other thing is, it's not, you shouldn't just speak up when there's hate crime against you. You should speak up at work. Lots of Asian American professionals hit a bamboo ceiling. They just quietly keep their head down and they think that they do good work, they'll be promoted. No, you don't. And I have given talks at diversity talks in Chicago. I urge the Chinese Americans not to stay in their lab and just do good work. I say, go out, eat lunch with your boss, tell your boss about your family, tell your boss what you have been doing. A good example is when Motorola had to lay off people, most of the engineers who were laid off were Chinese Americans. And, you know, when we sat down and talked about it, who were the engineers who were kept white and, you know, some South Asians. And I said, well, do they at lunch, who do you sit with? He said, oh, we sit with other Chinese Americans. Where do the whites sit with their bosses? The South Asians also sit with the bosses and mix with the whites. And that's also, you know, lack of participation as well. I think professionals have to do that. Yeah, and really it's the squeaky wheel gets the grease. If you don't talk, nobody notices you. So it's very, very important for us to speak up, to let people know that we're here. We're not just this quiet technician working in the lab, you know, or this IP lawyer who's writing a lot of patent application, you know.
I found that
one more thank you.
there are a few questions presented by audience. I would like, and some of a very good question. I would like to answer a couple of them. One from Christian Aquino Sterling about does OCA provide workshop for future teacher and school administrator how to use the toolkit and curricular resources? Well, Wenhua probably know more about those work with the availability of from national, but for OCA San Diego, we definitely would love to collaborate with school teacher and administrator on provide any resource and workshop on that. And if you have the connection or you yourself is a teacher or administrator, please let's get in contact. In fact, we plan to have a essay contest for high school students in next spring about their thought on the rising of the anti-Asian hate crime and incidents and the sentiment. Then we will offer cash award for winners. So please get in touch with me and we can talk more about that. And if the OCA National does not have those toolkit, we will try to work with them to create some for the school program.
The San Diego Chinese Historical Museum also has
that's right.
Additional program, so that's one area we can collaborate too. Okay, I think. And
yeah, that's good point too.
I'd like to actually ask Elizabeth, who's been collecting all of the questions, whether she has other questions from the audience, and feel free to, and then we'll try to select the right person to answer them. I also have a question or two more for Ron, our discussant, but we'll do that at an appropriate interval. Elizabeth?
Thank you, Brocade, for answering Christian's question. The next question that I have note of comes from Dr. Tomita. I think that it relates a little bit to some of the discussion with Ron. What are your suggestions regarding the role of police and law enforcement?
Unmute yourself, Ron.
Do you want me to? Dr. Mitz, it's great to see you. Dr. Mitz and I go back to the UPAC days, Union of Pan-Asian Communities. We sat on the board together. Regarding police and law enforcement, it's always critical to, from my perspective, have a working relationship with the police in collaboration with them as the law enforcement, obviously, nature of this. I know for a fact that the city of San Diego has, San Diego Police Department has set up safe places for the Convoy District. This is a collaboration of Asian businesses in the Convoy District that if there's a hate crime in progress, a victim can go into one of the safe places business and report that. We, along with the Yellow Whistle campaign, have been active in providing whistles to Asian Americans, especially the elderly. It's a tool, and Dr. Lily Chang has a great historical perspective on this Yellow Whistle that we've been passing out to the senior communities, because some I wouldn't say majority of it, but a large percentage of hate crimes have occurred in the elderly community, and the key for me, as I wrap up this long-winded answer, is the fact that there are community relations folks at the San Diego Police Department, at the Carlsbad Police Department, at all your local police department. Have a conversation with them. That is going to be the key in education both ways. All right, we have a hate crime, and how do we report that? How do we educate our community to report these hate crimes? San Diego County has a hate crime hotline. The more information we can pass on, the more tools we can provide in helping our communities, the better off we'll be in hopefully continuing to stamp out these hate crimes.
Thank you. Ron, I have a quick question to ask you. This is, I guess, addressed to both Brocade and Ron, or either Brocade and Ron, and that is, how much cooperation is there between all these various organizations designed to reduce hate crime and hate speech for minorities? For example, APAPA, the Organization of Chinese Americans, the Anti-Defamation League, the NAACP. Are there connections between these?
Absolutely, and we need to do more. And I've been reaching out to the NAACP. We work with OCA. We work with Alliance of Chinese Americans.
And JACL.
JACL and other organization. The key here is the stronger our collaborative voices are, the better off we'll be in the long run in combating hate crimes. That's going to be that's the bottom line of it, is working together.
Okay, thank you very much. Elizabeth, more questions?
We do have a question from Cassie Liu. I'd like to ask, I think it just turned her camera on. I'm going to ask that she pose her question directly to the panel.
Yeah, hi, I'm Cassie Liu. I was wondering that I was really captured when you were talking about Asian American mistreatment. And I was wondering that, when referring to Asian American mistreatment, the common counterpoint is the success of Asians, especially East Asians, in education and professional careers. And so, I'm often struggling with how do we discuss and reconcile these seemingly two disparate facts when trying to advocate for Asian American interests.
Yeah, I take a first crack at the answer. I think your answer should be Asian Americans do very, very well at the entry level up to the middle level in the professional rank. Look at the C-suites of Fortune 500 companies. How many of them are Asian American? Okay, now we've got Microsoft and I forgot which other one, 2 of them. Very, very unusual. If you look at the statistics of C-suite minorities, Blacks, Latino, Latinas, Asians have the smallest number. So that's how you do it.
Yeah, I would like to.
Yeah. I was just going to say, traditionally, there's been discrimination throughout universities. It's another topic. graduate schools, professional schools, persistent discrimination, and then law firms. I guess Woon-Wah might be familiar with that. There have been law firms that traditionally would have white Protestant men. They would never hire Asians, never hire Blacks, never hire Jews. And they've become a smidgen more liberal now, but not a lot. Would you
Right.
agree with that, Woon-Wah?
Oh, definitely. And right now there are more persons of color with law firms, but still, if you look at the partners, they would usually have one token partner from each minority group, and that's about it. And if you look at the practice, at least when I was practicing in Chicago, a lot of my African-American colleagues, either in the labor department, you know, labor and employment practice usually supports the corporate lawyer. The corporate lawyers and the litigators are the money-making lawyers. And there's no mentorship for beginning Asian American lawyers how they get into corporate practice. Now IP lawyers are doing very well because Asian Americans tend to have a lot of engineers. So, you know, a lot of IP lawyers doing patent application.
Yeah, can I say a little bit about that
Please.
too?
Yes.
Yeah, as I mentioned in my presentation, even though Asian have some individual success, however, as Woon-Wah said, that there's a definite glass ceiling there for Asians. In the leadership, you know, C-suite, they are definitely underrepresented, the Asian, and it's true across all industry. And when you look at that, especially in science and technology industry, there's so many Asian there, and yet very few Asian leaders. So it's definitely underrepresented, and also in politics as well. And that is why I start that petition. And again, if we don't advocate for ourselves, nobody will. And we have to learn to do that.
So
Elizabeth?
Cassie.
Elizabeth, do you have any more questions from the audience?
Really quickly, I wanted to just thank you all for all your answers. It was really helpful, and I really appreciate all of you for what you're doing.
Good. We're counting on young people like you to move forward.
Please join us. We can work together.
I'll certainly look into it.
Okay, thank you.
Elizabeth?
Looking at the,
I saw a hand raised a while ago.
Wow.
I didn't looking to see. Does Richard Sue? Would you like to join
Yes,
the discussion? Awesome.
I would like to make some suggestions. It's a good idea to get everybody organized among the Asian Chinese community. But I think that there is one thing more we have to do. We have to be proactive. Like, you know, what Ron said, participate in the government, the local government. There are so many opportunities available for us to make a contribution, because a lot of us have, you know, really good potential. Okay, like for instance, I'm in from East Coast many years ago. I participated in the local government. Okay, in the like for instance, on the Morris County in New Jersey, we have a human resources, a human relationship commission, and many of the local lawyers, the police commissioners, and also the superintendent of school. So this becomes some kind of a networking opportunities, because we did witness some campus crime. It's more like hate crime oriented. And I was one of the members at the committee, so I reached out to the superintendent of the school, and they would take action. So, you know, this is really, we need some kind of a networking and try to reach out to the government, agencies, and then they can take actions. The superintendents of schools, districts, and also the police commissioner, police chief, they really can help out. Okay, if we have anything we wanted to, complain about it, and they will take actions. Otherwise, like the minister of a church called the principal, and the principal said, oh, just two boys fighting each other. But it's serious, okay? So we have to make them aware.
Yep.
We are united. We have a voice in the government agency, so to take actions. And also, it's very important to reach out to the congressman, because the congressman is also very helpful. They make a phone call to immigration office, and action will be taken immediately. We can't just talk fundraising, get a membership, but we have to take some proactive actions to make the local government be aware we are here, okay? Don't take us for granted. And that's what I wanted to suggest. Thank you.
That's great.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I just want to remind everybody that District 6 in San Diego County has the highest portion of Asian Americans in the district. So Ron has been active in the redistricting. I hope that we will keep that district Asian American, and I believe there are 5 or so white candidates and 1 Asian American candidate running. And I'm not in that district. My resolve is to support that Asian American candidate, because that's an Asian American district. We're all retired. To the extent that we have time, we have money, we should support our community. And if we support our community, they will, through education and through various participatory programs, they will train our younger folks. And then that will lift the boat up for all of us.
Well, thank you very much. Well, I think so far, though, I think we all have to say this this program this morning, and I have to thank everybody who's been participating, has been a giant success, because I'm hearing a lot of people being energized. And so if we have a lot of people energized, that's the whole purpose of the session. And I want to thank everyone. And Ron, our discussant, I want to ask you if you have any further thoughts. Otherwise, it's about 11:30, and it may be time to wrap this up. And when we're finished, we want to thank everyone for tuning in and participating, and the participants. And I think we'll have our usual procedure, post-talk, post-Zoom analysis by the participants only, and we'll ask the viewers to sign off. But Ron, do you have any further thoughts?
No, thank you again for including me in this wonderful conversation. Mr. Su had some wonderful comments regarding participation, and it is active participation, activism that is going to make the difference. And I want to recognize Loretta and Tom Hom, who are on the call today. And Mr. Hom is the bright light and to my inspiration and participation as well. So I just want to recognize them for being on this, and also being a supportive aspect of the Asian American community. So thank you Tom?
You can say something.
Well, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Well, you know, I like to sit in these things. You know, I'm 94, and
You look like you're 64.
You shouldn't be telling your age because you look younger.
well, 94, and my dad had 12 kids, and he was in a wholesale produce business. When I was a young man, 60 years ago, I had a friend who told me, he said, Tom, can you go out and pass bumper stickers at the shopping centers and so forth for the car, because I'm running for public office, city council. And so I helped, and it was fun. And so he mentions, he said, Tom, you know, and maybe in a couple of years, you ought to run for public office. There's no minority ever got elected in this town. He was a Caucasian guy. And anyway, I thought about that as time went on. So 60 years ago, I went to a meeting and I met a Caucasian guy. We had lunch together and so forth. And we talked about life and so forth. And we had a good business. You know, my dad started a wholesale produce business. It went well, but he passed away. The kids took over. And anyway, he said, Tom, you ought to think about running for a public office. I say, well, gee, I never thought about it, but I had passed out pamphlets and bumper stickers and all that. It was fun. He said, no, you ought to do it. He said, well, you know, I don't know. You know, minority, they had the restriction on housing and all that. I don't know. He said, I want you to meet a man tomorrow. And so I met, so he said, I'll meet him at the Home Federal Building on the 11th floor. And he gave me the room address and so forth. He said, I'll be there. So I went up there, and we met in a hallway, and I knocked on the door, and the door opened, and there's this guy, 6'6" or something, big Caucasian guy, built like a bull, and he put out his hand. He said, "What's this I hear that you shouldn't run just because you're a minority," and so forth. And he said, if you want to run, you come in and I'll talk to you about that. Well, he happened to be the chairman of the Republican Party, you know. But all my younger life, I was in the, you know, in the Logan Heights area, everything with Democrats. So my passing, my work and passing out pamphlets and stuff was with a Democrat guy. But one time I mentioned to the chairman of the Democrat, I said, I think I might like to run for public office one day. He said, Tom, you make a good candidate, but it's not time for a minority to run. Maybe 10 years, I will help, I'm here. 10 years, that's a long time. But when this other guy took me to meet his friend, he said, you want to run, you come in here, I'll tell you how to run, help you. And, you know, he's a retired admiral, World War II, and he was in the front cover of Time magazine and Life magazine and newspaper, a great hero. And he said, Tom, you know, I didn't go to Annapolis. I'm a Mustang. A Mustang comes up as enlisted man, and he was a big animal, you know. And so anyway, you know, I kind of like his positive thought. You know, he didn't know me except my friend I met told him about me. And he said, I'll help you. And you know, he did help me, introduce me to the people, the business people in a different area, and to the one that, and to the family that ran the San Diego Union newspaper and all that. And you know, I ran. and I won. The first minority ever got elected in any position in San Diego. And so anyway, from there I ran, and so I beat an incumbent, and so I ran for re-election. This is citywide now, citywide. Took in La Jolla, Point Loma, Logan Heights. It's a citywide election at that time. Well, I ran for my re-election, and I won by 83% of all the votes. My opponent only had 13%. And the doors were open. But when I was first decided to run, so many of my friends, and especially some of my friends, minorities, say, Tom, you're a good guy, but I don't think you can run. And I had to get pamphlets out there, signboards, and the Chinese laundries, they're mostly in laundrymen. They had about 30 laundries in town. I thought I can get a sign there. And only 2 of them agreed to put a sign. The others said, we'll hold it, Tom. Maybe we might put it on, because it was embarrassing to them that here this guy is going to run, he won't win, so forth. But anyway, I did win. And so all the signs came out of gate cry. And so Eastman has very, very positive sense. And I went on to the state legislature and so forth. And I won so big that Ronald Reagan, who was governor, called me. He said, Tom, I hear about you and heard about you, and I need you up here because I'm three short in getting my program through, special program. He said, would you consider running for state assembly? Well, I didn't think about it because I had 6 kids here, to live in Sacramento and so forth. But anyway, I mentioned this to my wife, and my wife, one of these women who's gung-ho, very positive. And they say, Tom, with 6 kids, this would be good for them up there. They spend half a year in school there, half a year here. They have children in both areas. And so I did run, and I ran. So anyways, I was there by the help of other people, positive. Sure, I had negatives. But don't we all have that? But here I'm 94. I'll be 95 pretty soon, and I'm involved in different things, and I find people basically are good, but the ones that are offensive to you and so forth, it sticks in our mind more. So we got to look at it in a broader picture sometime. We can't say that, in neighborhoods, I know of neighborhoods, some of my friends would be in neighborhoods and so forth. And they were concerned that their minorities come in the neighborhood. But, but it came to a point that the vast majority of the neighborhood supports this minority. But he only hears about the negative that can be a few. So I just want to share my experience in getting involved. Okay, I don't want to take all your time.
That's right. No, Tom, we love hearing from you. And in fact, this will wrap things up. And Tom, tune in on October 2nd when we hear Doris Bitar and China Cube, the Silk Road and its Arab milieu. And then October 16th, Angel Island, and November 13th with our own Lily Cheng and porcelain as a medium for transoceanic exchange. And Tom, you can jump right in where you left off after that one.
Yeah.
At this point, I want to thank everyone for coming, and we'll have just 5 minutes of chatting amongst the participants in the program today and everyone else, we thank you for attending. Okay, bye-bye, everyone.
自己睡了。
头脑好清楚。